Hey guys, how we doing today? Thought I'd bring you guys another video. Hopefully you guys are having some good breeding results, enjoying your birds. That's the reason why we have them, right? So I thought today I would give you guys an update on my Gouldians. Kind of do a follow-up update on them and their breeding. I've had quite a few people ask me to kind of go a little bit more in depth on breeding Gouldian finches. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the process here, kind of do what I did with the zebra finches, maybe try and go a little bit more in detail on breeding my Gouldian finches. Maybe some of this will help you guys. It's really early in the morning. I just turned the lights on for the birds, so couldn't sleep last night, so we said, what the heck, let's go out and make a video before I head off to work. So birds are still waking up. It's a little bit earlier than usual when I turn the lights on for them, but that's okay. And we had a big cold front come through last night in a storm, so it's probably like 19 degrees outside right now. So inside it's definitely warmer. I would like it to be a little bit warmer. Right now I don't know if you guys can see through the wires, probably can't. Outside my window I have some plastic there, but I also left a section of the window open so the birds can still fly outside to the aviary. But it's letting in a little bit more cold air than I want it to. It's not keeping the bird room as warm as I'd want it to, so we're probably gonna have to make some adjustments, especially because I'm gonna have some Gouldian babies hatching here probably the end of this week, and I want to make sure that they're warm. These guys down here are sitting on eggs, and my bottom's usually a lot colder than the top, and so I need to make sure that they stay warm. And so we're gonna have to make some adjustments here just to help my bird room stay and maintain its heat a little bit better. Right now, you see my thermometer there, we're just under 60 degrees right now, and I'd like it to be around probably the 65 to 70 degrees. So we'll have to, I do have a heat lamp on right here. I also have my heater on down here, and so temperature is important for your Gouldian finches. They breed the best probably between 70 and 80 degrees. They will breed if it's a little bit warmer. If you're about 90 to 95 degrees and above, it can be a little too warm for them. Babies get hot, they get stressed out in the nest. So usually, 65 to 80 degrees is a really good temperature for these guys. You don't want it to get too cold because the Gouldian finches, oh, my male just hopped out. He's like, oh, it's morning already. You don't want it to get too cold because after about day 5 or 6, Gouldian finches a lot of times will stop sitting in the nest or sleeping in the nest at night, and so you need to make sure it's warm enough that the babies will stay warm in the nest at night. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. One thing I wanted to go in detail on is setting your Gouldians up for breeding. I've had quite a few people message me saying, hey, I have my pair together and they're just not breeding. Gouldian finches, they don't need a whole lot to breed, but they do need some things to get them into breeding condition. So unlike canaries, Gouldian finches don't necessarily need a certain amount of light each day to trigger their breeding. I mean, obviously you want to make sure that you have 10 or more hours of light for them, just to give them ample time to be able to feed their chicks, throughout the day. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But Gouldian finches, Mikey's wanting a little bit of the action. Give him some action because he's hi buddy. Yeah, I know. We'll do another video on you, okay buddy? Really, one of the most important things for Gouldian finches is their diet. Their diet is what will bring them into breeding condition or will take them out of breeding condition. And what I mean by diet is egg food, that's really important. Soft foods, soaked seeds, millet spray, those sort of things will help bring a Gouldian finch into condition or into breeding condition. And one thing to try and think of is wherever you're at during your springtime, all the wild birds, that's when they will breed, right? That's when they start having babies, and that's because they have a lot of insects available. They have new, fresh, flowers and green vegetables, that sort of things for them to eat. There's new seed that, food is in abundance, and that's what triggers those birds to breed. And that's the same for the Gouldian finches. You have to kind of mimic that environment and start giving them these foods in plenty, and that'll help mimic or trigger them to breed because they think, oh, we have a lot of food that's in plenty. I can raise some babies on all of this food. And so that's kind of what you need to look at it, or how you need to look at it. With my Gouldian finches, I try and mimic, the seasons where, when it's not breeding time, I'll usually put them out in the cages and I'll separate the sexes. So females on this side and males on this side. Because in the wild, Gouldian finches, they do pair up, they do spend time together, but outside of the breeding season, a lot of them are solitary, or they'll fly off and kind of do their own thing, or the males will hang out or the females will hang out, and then come breeding time, they'll kind of group back up and pair off and kind of go off on their pairs. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. So to bring my Gouldian finches into breeding, I usually give them a dry period to let them molt, and I'll just give them seeds and maybe some egg food once a week, once every other week. And once they're done with their molt, that's when I'll slowly start introducing some more egg food or some soaked seeds, or try and do it like twice a week, and then after a few weeks I'll do it 3 times a week, and that'll bring them into condition. And then when they're breeding, I will give them egg food every day, especially if they have egg or chicks in the nest. Give them egg food every day, soaked seeds every day, millet spray a couple times a week, those sort of things, so that they feel and know that there is an abundance of food, and that'll help bring them into breeding condition. Another way to tell if your Gouldian finches are in breeding condition, and we'll try and I'll stick my phone in there and see if we can see it. I know we have this red lamp on. It's kind of throwing the colors off a little bit. Is the male will have a pearly white beak. So that's a good sign that they are in prime breeding condition. And then your female will have a dark black beak. Basically, the blacker the beak, the more in condition she is and is wanting to breed. So I'm gonna hold the phone up here. We're gonna try and get it through the cracks of the wires so you can see my male Gouldian's beak. Actually, we'll do it down here where there's not light, and then you can see kind of the male and the female, and hopefully we can show you what I'm talking about as far as beak color goes. So my hen's on the right, you see how black her beak is? And then my male is on the left, and you can see that he's got a white beak. It's like a pearly white. If we could get him to turn around. So he's on the right now, just jumped up in the nest. So he's got a really white beak. My hen's got a jet black beak. Those are all signs that they are in breeding condition and are ready to breed. So take a look at your birds, see if their beak colors match that. We'll zoom back out here. Maybe we can kind of have those lights in the background, so it's a little bit harder to tell. The female's on the left, male's on the right here. There's your male there. Kind of see that white beak. Hen's down here on the bottom. She's got that black. So look at your pairs, see if they have that beak color. So that's a good sign there of that your birds are in breeding condition. So another thing with your Gouldians is your males love to sing and court the females. And I'll try and dig up an old video of my Gouldian finches singing to each other, and see if we can try and get that up for you. So the Gouldian males, they like to sing and they kind of shake their heads back and forth really fast, and then they start dancing, jumping up and down on the perch next to the hen, trying to impress them, get them excited. One of the best signs that you can see, and they'll kind of point their tail towards that hen that they're dancing towards. The best sign that you can see that the hen has accepted the male is,
hi buddy,
is she will also start shaking her head back and forth and point her tail towards him. That's a sign that she's accepted him as a mate. She's ready to breed. And you could probably throw a nest box in there and pair them all together. And so that's definitely something to look at. Watch your finches. And usually when they do that the most is when you first put the pair together. That's when they'll show that display or that courtship. And so if they're together for a long time, like I've had these guys together for a few weeks, they don't do it as much because they're in there together. But the best way that you can do it is separate your pairs if they're not doing anything for you. Keep them separate for, probably a week or two. If your male's singing like crazy and your hen seems to be interested, she's kind of listening to him or trying to get closer to him, put them back together, and usually right away he'll start singing to her. And if she's receptive and ready to breed, she'll respond back to him, and she'll kind of shake her head back and forth, or her tail will point towards him. She'll seem to be really interested in this song. She won't fly away, that sort of thing. So those are all good signs that your Gouldians are ready to breed. So hopefully those small tips will help out. Sometimes as far as nest building goes, I have some pairs that I have to build the nest for them. I have other pairs that build their own nest. So that's just something to keep an eye out. If you don't see anything happening with the nest, maybe throw some nesting material inside the nest box. See if that'll kind of convince them or help them out. One thing I did want to note is on this pair that I have here, so my male, he's the redhead purple breast. You can see he's got a nice white beak. Not as white as I'd like it to be. And then my hen, you can see that her beak's white too. So that's something to keep an eye on, or could be a little bit confusing for your female yellowback Gouldians, is their beaks don't turn black. They stay kind of a white color. So that's something you have to look at and keep in mind. And so that's maybe a time when you just watch them and see if the female's receptive to the male's courtship, and that can show you that she's ready to breed. So the yellowback females, their beaks do not turn black. They kind of stay, kind of a white color, kind of get that pearly white like the males. And it's only the yellowbacks. So your greenbacks and your bluebacks, their beaks will still turn black. It's just your yellowback hens, their beaks don't turn black. And so sometimes, or lots of times, people confuse yellowback hens as males because their beaks don't turn black. And so that's something to keep in mind. I know this is a female because she's laid eggs for me before. So I know that, but she's waiting for some food. I turned the lights on and I haven't fed him yet. So she's like, what the heck, dude? So one thing to keep in mind with these guys, so this pair, if you guys watched my videos earlier, probably about a month ago, 2 months ago, about a month ago, I had all my Gouldians out in the aviary, and I had them set up in here, and I had all the nest boxes in there, ready to breed. And I did get some that bred for me. You can see, if you kind of go through, the birds are still kind of sleepy. I still have some baby Gouldians out there that are molting right now, and they were all bred out there in the aviary, but I just didn't have as much success. I had a lot of babies that were tossed, and I think that's just because other birds were peeking in the nest. The Gouldians were kind of fighting over what nest they wanted to breed in, and so I just didn't feel like it was very successful. So that's why I brought all the pairs in here. And I have this pair here. They have 4 babies there that are all weaned. She's sitting on eggs. I think there's 4 out of the 5 that are fertile. They should be hatching the end of this week. And then these guys down here laid eggs. I need to candle her. She's been sitting on them for about a week now, so I should be able to see if any of them are fertile or not. So that's, you know, them. And then I have these guys, and they really haven't done much for me. So they did pair up, and I know she laid some eggs out here in the aviary, but since I've had them in here, they really haven't done much. And I wonder if I kind of missed that window of breeding. And they're kind of on the wind down, I guess you could say, as far as breeding goes, because they really haven't shown much signs. My male hasn't been singing as much. Those are all signs that, you know, they're kind of not in that breeding mode. And so, and I had this nest box in here for about 2 weeks. They didn't really touch it, so I said, you know, we'll try and put a different nest box in here, see if that piques their interest at all. Not much has happened, so I'm gonna give them about another week and see if anything changes, and if not, I'm probably going to separate them. I'm gonna pull them out. I'm gonna put my male in here, and I'm gonna put my hen in here. And I'm gonna kind of be done with them for the season and let them start molting. And so if your birds are not breeding for you, there's a good chance that they're not in breeding condition. And whether that means they're about ready to molt, whether that means you haven't fed them the proper diet to bring them into breeding condition, your best chance is to just separate them for a little bit and see if that will spark any more interest in them. If they start to molt, then you know that it's time for them to molt and they're not ready to breed, and you got to wait till they're done molting before you try and breed them again. Sometimes people look at the molt as kind of a burden, or, you know, it makes the birds ugly. For Gouldian finches, and for me personally, a molt is a really good sign. Because lots of times that I've seen in the past, if a Gouldian finch doesn't molt, it has some sort of an underlying health issue. And if they molt, that's their body saying, hey, I'm healthy enough to molt out my old feathers and produce some new feathers. And that's a good sign. So molting is not bad. That's a good sign. That means that your bird's at least healthy enough to be producing some new feathers. You know, it does mean you can't breed them right then, because they're not going to be in breeding condition, but that they will, you know, in a few months' time, be ready to breed again. And so if your birds are not breeding, I would suggest, you know, if you've tried everything, you got their diet right, separate your birds. Let them be separate for a few weeks or for a month and see what happens. Does that spark your male's interest? Does he start singing more? Does that help the hen become more receptive to him? Or do they start molting and it's time for them to kind of rest and just molt and not breed yet? And so I know if you only have one pair, it's kind of hard to just separate them because you want them to breed and have babies. But if you try and breed them when they're not ready, that's when a lot of like egg-bound issues happen with your hens, or they just kind of become stagnant and they don't really know what's going on and what to do. And so separate them, give them a chance apart or a little bit of time apart, and see if that helps them out any. One thing I also wanted to highlight on their diet is, you know, it's a process. You can't just give your Gouldians egg food every day for a week and then expect them to be ready to breed. It's a process, you know, like springtime takes a couple months, right? It doesn't just overnight you have a plentiful insects and all of these green plants and flowers. You know, that takes time. It's a few weeks process. It brings them into condition, you know. And so kind of have that same attitude or mentality of, you know, it's a work in progress. You got to give them, or you have to slowly introduce the egg food or the soaked seeds or the millet spray over several weeks period of time. And that helps bring them into breeding condition. And same with like your temperature, you know, slowly increase that temperature throughout time. And that helps bring them in, and it's healthier for the birds. It's not like a shock to their system. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind. You got to be patient with that. Know that it's a process. Know that it's not just going to happen in 1 week's time. It could be a few weeks to a few months that would really bring them into that condition. And so keep that in mind. Trying to think what else we have here. Gouldians are pretty secretive. You know, they don't like a whole lot of nest checks and that sort of thing. My hen here, she's awesome. She'll sit in the nest the whole time. She's a really good sitter. Whereas my hen down here, she's a really light sitter. And so if I spend too much time in here, she won't go back in her nest and her eggs will get cold. And so that's something that you kind of got to keep in mind. You know, try and not bother them too much. If they're in a high flow traffic area, if you have your birds in like your living room or your kitchen or something like that, lots of times they won't breed successfully for you. They may lay eggs and they may hatch them out, but lots of times they'll toss their chicks. So give them their privacy. That I think that's something that's really important, and it will help them, you know, breed better and be a little bit more successful for you. So trying to think, the Gouldian babies, they take quite a while to molt out, probably about 6 months at least to molt out. Some a little bit faster, some a little bit longer. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm trying to think what else. I personally like the individual breeding cages better than the aviary setting. Just kind of like what I had highlighted before, is there's a lot of competition over nest boxes, other birds peeking into their nest, and it disturbs them, and they tend to toss their chicks a lot easier. Whereas if they're in a individual breeding cage, it's all to themselves. They don't have to defend their nest. They don't have to, you know, feel like their privacy is being invaded or anything like that. And so keep that in mind. And also another benefit is you can kind of choose your pairs. Lots of times Gouldians will choose their mate, and if they can still hear or see that mate that they've chosen, they won't breed with any other birds. So keep that in mind. If you have multiple pairs and they're not breeding for you, maybe swap the pairs up. Give them a different mate and see if that sparks their interest or makes them happy, you know. And so, but that is one benefit to individual cages like this, is you can select who you want to breed most of the time, and get specific colors or sizes and that sort of thing. Whereas in an aviary, it's kind of the luck of the draw. Whoever pairs up, that's who they pair up with. And sometimes you don't even know who they paired up with because they're pretty secretive. And so, so yeah, so hopefully that'll help you guys out a little bit. In my next video, I'll show you all the eggs, and hopefully these guys will have some chicks that have hatched. I'm getting ready. Probably I'll send these guys out in the aviary here pretty soon. Let them molt out there. We'll candle these eggs next video, see if we have anything fertile. And then depending on these guys, within a week or so, if they don't do anything, I'm probably just gonna throw them out in the aviary and let them molt. So I'll keep you updated on these guys. So just remember, Gouldians depend a lot on the type of food that they're given, how frequently. That's what will bring them into breeding condition or take them out. Molting is not a bad sign. That means you got a healthy bird. Trying to think, keep an eye on, like, you know, when the male's seeing and court the female, is she receptive? Is she pointing her tail towards him? Is she shaking her head too? Are they interested in the nest? Or if they're not interested in the nest, maybe try a different one and that'll spark their interest. Just a few things to kind of help you out. If they're not breeding, separate them for a little bit. Make sure they can still see and hear each other but aren't in the same cage. Maybe that'll spark a little bit more interest, and put them back together a couple weeks after that and see if anything happens, or see if they start molting. So I think all those things are a lot of the basics with the Gouldians. Hopefully that'll help you out a little bit. Hopefully you feel that, you know, maybe some of these tips or pointers will help you out with your pairs, help them breed a little bit better. Hopefully you don't have any chicks that are tossed because they feel safe. They feel like they have their privacy. And, you know, hopefully that'll help you out. So appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully we'll get some chicks here in the nest soon and we can show you guys. Probably my next video will be on an update on my canaries. I do have one pair of canaries that are itching to breed, and so I'm really debating if I want to just put them together right now and let them breed, because they're both ready, the male and the female. So we'll probably start doing that here soon and let you guys in on that. Hopefully we'll give you some tips and pointers on breeding the canaries as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching the videos, and best of luck with all your birds.